Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Andrew Caldwell with me here today. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Shmoop. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate being here.
All right, why don't you tell our listeners about Shmoop?
You bet. Well, it's a funny name. It's actually a Yiddish term, which means to nudge and to move forward. And our original founders had their kids had some challenges with the standardized test, SAT and ACT, and specifically there were some finance questions. And our original founders were finance people, I should say, right? And so made a YouTube video. The daughter looked at the video on how to answer various questions and then did very well on the assessment, and then passed that video on to friends. And then they saw the hits on the video just kept growing. And so they said, well, wait a minute, what if we created content? We could probably help a lot of people. And so that's how Shmoop started. It was really just, it helped
organically,
family member, and then grew from there.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. I have kids in high school, and I get certain announcements for different types of standardized test prepping.
Yeah.
Before we talk about the nature of standardized tests and where if they're coming or going right now, why don't you give us a little better idea of how Shmoop stands apart?
Yeah, we're really different in three facets, right? So one is when you look at our platform, it's significant depth, right? So when you look at a test prep provider, you're either buying them for a specific assessment, like just the SAT or just the ACT or just APs, right? Shmoop has all of that. Plus, we also have content on their courses, like, for example, life lesson courses, like how to buy a car or how to write a resume or how to balance a checkbook. Believe it or not, that's just not really taught in schools. And so it's a wealth of knowledge. So number one is depth. Number two is humor, right? I'll say we have the most amount of dad jokes possible on a platform.
Oh boy.
And the reason, the method to our madness is that if I can get you to look at content differently, giggle a little bit, laugh a little bit about something, it releases dopamine. And by doing so, you're going to have a higher recall rate of the material. And to be quite frank with you, our competitors, while they are strategically sound, it is probably some of the most boring material ever, right? And so we try to make it goofy, funny for the people to absorb the information.
Keep them engaged.
You got it, right? And then really the third thing is that Shmoop is an individualized lesson plan. Tim, the way you're going to learn material is going to be completely different than the way I learn material. So one of the first steps you do at Shmoop is you go in and you take a diagnostic. And so based on that data, now we can determine a roadmap or a path specifically to you or for you so that you can accomplish what you're trying to do.
Okay. What's that sort of onboarding or analysis look like?
Yeah, it's just getting signed up with Shmoop, and then you take your diagnostic. So the diagnostic is typically a subset of the actual assessment. There's components of each assessment in there. And then we can get an idea of strengths and weaknesses. That typically takes about 15 to 20 minutes to do, and that's it. And then it goes in and it'll map out exactly what you need to do, when you need to do it, and how you need to do it. Okay.
Do you survey them for their learning preferences, right? Are they visual? Are they oral?
Oh, great question. Right? So you have to take into consideration that their learning preferences can vary greatly. And so we incorporate all of them. We have readings, we have drills, we have videos. And then your assessments are they're almost exactly like what you're going to see.
Okay. Excellent. That helps a lot. I'm coming from a bit of a neuroscience background. A bit, I guess. I have a PhD in it, but I focused on like the molecular nature of things, right? And the lab and stuff. I didn't do a lot of psychology and training and stuff, although I did get subjected to a fair amount of it. I do know that multimodal stuff is very effective, right? If you listen to an audiobook while you read it, you retain and understand so much more, right? And if you take notes while on it periodically and stuff, it's another order of magnitude. So I imagine you do things like even smell, actually. If you light a candle,
get you to smell a textbook through I would do it.
Well, what they do is it's a study. I don't remember the exact numbers, but if you have like a vanilla candle going while you're studying, and then if you get vanilla smells while you're taking the test, you perform better. Your brain is pairing it with different areas and cues to recall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, you were saying about the different approaches and things you guys implement.
Yeah. And so when you look at the Shmoop platform, right, when we work with, I'll give you an example, state of Utah called us, and they were 13th in the country for juniors taking their ACT scores. And I think they were at a 21 on average on the ACT. And they knew that if they could raise that number up, that it would account for more scholarships, more opportunities for the students. And then it would look, obviously, for elected officials and for the school systems, there was nothing but positivity associated with getting better scores. And so they reached out to us. We won the bid. Within the first year, we got them to number 1 in the country for juniors scoring their ACT. And for the last 4 years, we've had them at number 1. Right. And so
nice. That's an incredible testimonial.
It's an awesome. And then you look at, like, in Texas, there's a test there called the Texas Success Initiative, or TSI, right?
They got to have their own. Sure.
Yeah, they got their own. So, Texas, they just tend to do it bigger and better and want to certainly do it on their own. So with the TSI, it does 2 things. Number 1, it is their standardized test, and it's for the Texas educational system. So if you pass that test, the student can take dual enrollment credits. So if I pass this test as a sophomore in high school, I technically graduate high school with my associate's degree. And so you can get to college at any Texas university online if you pass that test. And so the other thing that they do is they look at that for accountability perspectives for the school. And they say there's 2 states in the country right now that are applying outcome bonuses to standardized tests, and that's Texas and Tennessee. And so if in Texas you score on the TSI, the school can get up to $7,000 in additional funding per student. So to kind of give you an example, we worked with a high school there, McAllen High School, which is right on the border of Texas and Mexico. Right. Okay. And they had 64% of their population is socioeconomically disadvantaged, which means they have less than $40,000 as household combined income, which if interpreted, Tim, between you and I, they can't afford books. Right. They just don't have the money to do the things that other districts can do. Right. Okay. And so they came to us and said, hey, if we can increase our TSI outcome, can you develop the test prep for us? So we did it. And we were able to help them improve. We were able to help them improve $300,000 in 1 year in additional funding, bonus funding, because they used Shmoop, because we were able to they had a total of, I think, 6 seniors pass the exam the year before. We got 408 the first year that they tried it. And so we were able to be effective with our methodology and our outcomes.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. You reminded me, this is a slight tangent from our topic, but I read a book last year called 10 to 25 by David Yeager. And he's if you're familiar with the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, I think she's at Stanford, but very good stuff. But anyway, David Yeager is in that same field, but he works more on those formative years, right?
Yeah.
The high schoolers and other stuff. And he's in Texas and works with West Texas stuff on helping kids perform better and learn better in school and stuff. And so that's, a lot of it was providing them with the proper resources to perform, right?
It's amazing, the discrepancy. We work with over 1,200 districts around the country, and the discrepancies is significant. And you would think that it's going to be somewhat similar. And the more I dig into this industry, the more I find that it's not.
Right. Well, just to bookend what I was bringing up was that the potential is great. A lot of people they were writing them off based off of socioeconomic status or and things like that, and they're like, no, they showed that these guys can be rock stars. So
absolutely, that cool. They absolutely can be rock stars, and what they just need is that nudge or that opportunity. So we shmoop them along.
Well, love it. Yeah, awesome. So back to standardized testing.
Yeah.
So it's gone. It's back again. Can you talk a little bit about the nature of that?
Sure. So to kind of give you an example, LA Unified, or the LA school system, is one of our customers, right? Okay. So they have a $2.1 billion annual budget. Right? They serve more kids in the cafeteria than most McDonald's do. When you start thinking about how many schools and how many children, it's the second largest in the country. New York being number 1, LA's number 2, right? So
you're talking about like by district?
By district,
because New York, is District 1, right? It's everywhere. It's huge.
It's massive,
in Arizona, we have like 50 districts or something.
Right, exactly. You got it. And growing, yeah, absolutely. And so we were out in LA, and I'm at a presentation, and with me is the dean of admissions at UCLA. And California passed a law, I think it was 2 years ago, that said, hey, standardized tests are not going to be used for acceptance into the California state school system. And so I talked to him and I said, how in the world, like, because here's the problem, right? If your student as a freshman in college does not matriculate through and graduate, it costs the university money to go out and re-recruit students, right? So they want to see you move through. They want to see you graduate.
They want to see you succeed. Yeah.
You got it. They'd like to keep the revenue stream for 4 years or more if they could, but they also want to see you be successful. And that's one of the reasons, or one of the variables they're judged on, right? And so I asked them, like, at example, how many applicants did you have? Over 130,000 applicants for 25,000 spots at UCLA. So my next question was, once standardized tests are not one of the key components, what do you look at? And his comment
what's your metric?
Yeah, we just look at, was your mother an actress and can she lie about whether you're on the rowing team? No, I'm kidding. Right?
Well, there's so many things. There's so many things you could say there.
Absolutely. Right. So they looked at AP scores.
They do a credit check.
Right. So they looked at, did you get 3 AP courses or more? So advanced placement courses. If you've done 3 or more of those, that was the highest criteria to get an evaluation. Right.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's a strange one to go by. And most schools now don't count AP or honors classes, right? They don't want any weighted anything. They don't want. So you take the harder courses and the advanced placement and they punish you for it.
It makes it more challenging for sure. Yeah.
Right. It's interesting to hear that they were looking at AP. Are they still?
Well, there was a lawsuit brought just yesterday, actually. And it was a lawsuit of, look, I'm not going to get too controversial here, and it doesn't matter to me what side of the political fence people stand. It doesn't matter to me, right? But there was a lawsuit saying that if you were either a Caucasian and or an Asian citizen, that you were being discriminated against because of racial discrimination is what they're claiming, that they couldn't get in because there's only so many spots, right? And so that lawsuit, I think, will have some sort of effect. And so we'll see. Hopefully they'll go and do the right thing, which is, at the end of the day, you have to be able to evaluate who you're going to let into college, because it's not for everybody, right? It's not the right career path for everybody. So at the end of the day, there's only so many resources out there. Who are you going to let in? And what is the criteria to do so? What's the most fair and equitable way to do it? And each college is going to be different.
Right. Yeah, it's tricky in the sense that, generally speaking, for any career field or any path forward, you want people who are competent.
Yes. Right. So I was riding my bike the other day, Tim. I got hit by a car, right? Riding my bike, right? So I go to the hospital, and you're just thinking to yourself, I'm hoping I'm getting the most competent person at this moment, right? Yeah. And so that's really what people are looking for, is how can we help them be the most competent people? And that's Shmoop will help you do that with your test assessments to say, where do you want to go? What do you want to do in life? And it's not just standardized tests. Like, for example, the military has a test. It's called the ASVAB. Right. Mm-hmm. And if you score 31 or better out of 100, you're in the military. But the higher you score, the more opportunities the military can present to you. And so if you're in the 90s, you have nuclear medicine, you have all sorts of different opportunities inside of the military. And they are having a very difficult time obtaining the skill sets needed to do some of the job functions needed at a very high level. And so they're looking for those kind of things.
Right. I'd like to point out the military has been doing this a long time, and those numbers aren't arbitrary. They know who can and can't perform in those fields.
Right. So I'll tell you a life story. My son came home, he's 25, he was trying to play professional baseball and really couldn't make it past single A level. And so he decided he's got to get into a career, and he was considering the military. And I said, well, you got to take the ASVAB test. And he was like, Dad, I got that. That's easy. Right. And so he went in and he did incredibly well. And he scored in the upper 80s, low 90s in the math and the literacy component. Okay. But ASVAB also measures your mechanical component. Right. And so this child, I'm going to tell you, has never seen the inside of an automobile engine. Right. He's never changed his own oil. He has no idea how all those components work. And he scored in the low 30s. in that section, right?
Okay.
I said, Josh, why don't you go into Shmoop, use it, learn a little bit from those things. He was able to use it for a week, did the trainings, and then the next week took the exam, and he got into low 70s, low 80s with those same.
That fast. Wow.
It is amazing what repetition and accuracy can do to an educational level. And if you just practice, we say 15 minutes a week, you're going to do incredibly well.
Excellent. That's another good testimonial.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Excellent. So circling back to the use of standardized tests.
Sure.
I don't mean to belabor it. It's just, I'm curious. Sure. So supposedly all the schools were getting rid of them. It was a trend. And then they realized, well,
yeah. So here's what 2 states have done, Texas and Tennessee. Texas started it, Tennessee's mirroring it, and you have other states looking at it. The question is, how do you judge whether a school is doing well or not, right? It used to be graduation, right? If they graduated, great, right? Here's the problem. We had a school, and I'll remain nameless, in the state of Texas, who called me and said, I've got 400 seniors graduating, and 30% of them can pass the English exam state level. So that means 70% can't, right. And 12% can pass the math exam. That means 88% can't, right?
Is that a math joke, or is
it? Right. And so at the end of the day, the question becomes is, if those people are graduating, is graduation the right evaluation tool of if whether a high school or a school system is doing well? I would argue no. Right. Yeah. And so they're looking at standardized tests of becoming one, if not a major component of a school system's effectiveness. Right. And so Tennessee and Texas are paying outcome bonuses for if you pass or get a 21 or better in ACT in the state of Tennessee, the school will get $4,000 typically on average in additional funding per child. Okay. And then in Texas, it's the TSI. If they pass that TSI exam, they get funding too as well.
Okay. So in general, there's some form of testing that this is coming back in some
It is. It absolutely is. And when we look at the new administration, you have no idea which way they're going to turn, what day it's going to turn, right? Other than I can tell you it's going to change, right? That change is coming. And so the question then becomes is, are we prepared for it? And if standardized tests become more apparent, then how are you going to give your child the best opportunity to be the most successful? And our test prep can do that. And we're happy to help. As a matter of fact, I've already talked to our board because they knew I was going to be doing this podcast. We were going to give any one of your listeners a discount to Shmoop. So if they just call in or email, they saw this on the podcast, we'll make sure we apply the discount.
Okay, excellent. Who are your typical clients?
Yeah, so we sell to really 4 levels. We have individual consumers, so parents, students that want to do better on the test individually. We sell to schools, we sell to districts, and we sell to states.
Okay. So obviously the bigger contracts are more effective.
They are.
What percentage of your current clients would you say are individuals?
Yeah. So right now it's our individual consumers are about 34% of the business. The remainder of the business is, and that's a flip. We used to be 90% individual consumers. And what had happened was we'd have several teachers using it for their students. We had homeschoolers using it. They would then go tell the schools. The schools then would say, hey, we want to buy it. So it was a grassroots marketing success. Well, we started with individual consumers, and then it grew to where about 67% of our clientele are now either schools or districts or states.
Okay, excellent. You just reminded me of a little side note on how important the test scores are for schools. I thought this was a little interesting. We were talking a little bit about sense before and stuff, and things you can do to perform increase performance on exams. In our district, they encourage the kids to bring mints to testing. Have you heard of that one before?
I haven't heard of that one. The one that recently saw the statistical data on whether you should listen to Vivaldi or should you listen to Mozart before you take your test while you practice and see which ones actually you could score better. So I haven't heard the result yet. Yeah.
Which one was the outstanding music?
The Vivaldi was the one
Oh,
that
yeah?
you would score higher with. Yeah.
Funny.
It eked it out by like 0.003% difference. So yeah, it
Haha.
wasn't much, but it was
Yeah.
statistically sound. Yeah.
I can imagine for me, because there's all sorts of there's binaural beats and other things which can optimize your
Yeah.
brain patterns for different types of learning. And it depends on the context, right? Like math,
Sure.
Vivaldi might be good, but if I was doing
Right.
right other work, it depends.
Right.
But so the mint was interesting to me because I imagine it's because mint is, I didn't look at the data, but there's studies that show it, so they were on board. It improves test performance. And I imagine it's just the when you have some sort of aromatic candy, you breathe more, you get a little more oxygen,
Yeah.
a little
Sure.
better performance. The same as what's more clear is like if you do jumping jacks or something before an exam, you will
Yep.
definitely score higher. It's just blood flow and you perform better.
You get it, man. Yeah, get it. And so in our test prep, we actually have two components. And as you're going, so our readings are only one page, right?
Okay.
That's it. We condense the information into one page because people get bored after
Sure.
that, right? So we condense it, but we also include two things in the test prep. One is on the particular context of that test prep. So if whether that's mathematics or English, whatever that is, there's that particular subject. Here is some context information about why they're asking, what they're really looking for in those test
Okay.
scenarios. And then we have a different color, and that's typically blue. And the blue color is test taking strategies. Like, for example, I believe it sounds crazy, but just taking a second, take your fingers and stretch them out as wide as you can and bring them back
Okay.
in and do it
Yeah.
again. If you do that 3 times, typically you'll have better blood flow and it'll help you improve. And it just makes you calm down to read the questions a little bit differently.
Okay, excellent. I like that a lot more than teaching our kids to dope and use substances to improve performance.
Right. Right. That's a whole nother venue, Tim. That's a different podcast.
Well, they're encouraging mints. Come in and bring stuff. I was like,
Right.
I don't know.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about the other aspects other than test prep, some of the other parts of the Shmoop curriculum?
Sure. So it started with test prep and then it has grown from there because as you know, Tim, when you get a client, you get a partner really, and then you try to grow with them. And so we've gotten into, of all things, what they call SEL or social emotional learning, right? Which is really mental well-being.
Okay.
Right? And we were fairly hesitant to get into that space because of a variety of reasons, the complexity of it, the liability associated with it, a variety of reasons. But to be frank with you, we saw that there was an epidemic, specifically with the pandemic and all the challenges that was not only affecting our students, our parents, our teachers, the administration. Let's just be frank, it was a challenging time.
Sure. Anxiety galore.
You got it, right? And so we had to figure out a way that we could help calm this down. And we came up with a platform called Heartbeat, which the way schools would determine mental health in the past was essentially a survey tool. And they would do that 1 to 2 times a year. They'd survey students in the beginning of the year and then typically halfway through the year or potentially at the end of the year. And the reality was, what was that data really capturing? And you imagine you're a student, you're 15 years old, you get the survey sheet in front of you. The first question is, why am I filling this out? Whatever. I feel fine. Here you go. Right. Okay. To kind of give you an idea what our Heartbeat platform is, we worked with child psychologists and we also worked with a company or a component called Digital Promise. And we built this platform. It's a surveying tool based on emotions. And we're able to determine what emotions are being affected the most by that student at that particular time. And that's the critical component, is that it's at that particular time. So the student will get typically 6 questions. They go in, they answer those questions. They don't have to answer them if they don't like. I give you an example. We got a call from a principal just last week. He said, hey, I've got students that are specifically saying they're hungry. That hunger is an issue. And we are a free breakfast, free lunch school. What are they talking about? And I said, well, we don't know, but let's find out. So we reached out, was able to communicate directly with the student. And we found out that while they do have free breakfast and free lunch, the school system wasn't showing up in time. They were getting them there in time for school, but they weren't getting them there in time for breakfast. So imagine you got a test first or second period and you're starving. You're not going to do so well. And so Heartbeat was able to identify those challenges, and then we were able to go in and make some adjustments. And so it's been effective. the question then becomes and then we also have other tools like courses. So for teachers, if you're homeschooling or you got we have courses on Shakespeare. We have courses on we have life skills courses, like how to buy a car, how to write a resume. There's a variety of courses in there. Okay. So we built this platform over time, 14 years, working with clients, starting with Test Prep.
Okay. That's, it seems like there's different arms maybe of Shmoop.
There are.
And analytics are clearly very important, and it seems like that alone could be a particularly useful tool for districts everywhere.
It's amazing because we can look at. We came up with one study in Texas. We saw that if we could get a school to do a class, which typical class is about no more than 40 people, if we could get that class to do 200 drills or more in a particular time frame, we could increase average test scores by 7 points. So imagine you're taking an SAT or or let's just say ACT, and I'm scoring a 14. We can move you up to a 21 pretty quickly. Let's get to 200 drills, and it'll do well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Get in the reps. So back to Arizona, you keep mentioning different districts. I mean, New York is huge, has one district. Arizona has how many now?
There's over 50. It's large. Yeah.
Seems like too many.
There's the educational system state to state is, Tim, you think you've got it figured out. Like, I'm from Ohio initially and then moved out here, and I knew the Ohio educational system fairly well. And then you come out here and Arizona is completely different. And then you add in school choice, it's completely different. Like, most of the country has no idea how that really works. And so it is unique, to say the least. Yeah.
I think there's some, is that the Doge? You need an Arizona Doge to come in and maybe consolidate some of that.
Figure it out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it's obviously having a big impact in the area. Can you talk a little bit real quick about the geographical location of your clients?
Sure. Yeah. So we have, from a geographic, working with over 1,200 districts all over the country. We even have international schools that want to teach English, and they'll buy our content too as well. I just signed one up in France the other day. So I guess technically we're international.
You're global.
Yeah, we can say it. But technically, yes. But the reality is the majority, if not 99.9% of our business is here in domestic United States. And so with that, we have 3 really large regions. There's what I call the West Coast region. California, Nevada is big for us. Seattle or Washington is big for us too as well. And then we have the Midwest, or what I call the Midwest, which is Texas. Right. And then we have really what I call the Midwest, or the East, which is going to be the Ohio region.
Heartland or the East Coast.
You got it. Right. And then you have the East Coast and Southeast. You got the Florida. We got Florida. And then you've got New York area. You've got the Ohio region. You got Texas. And then you have California in the West. Yeah.
Okay. So it's fairly uniformly distributed?
It's more larger in the West than it is in the Midwest or East, but yeah, it
interesting
balances between the Southwest and the West, really.
What was the French connection?
Just absolute. We have over 1 million visitors to our website every month. If that's crazy to see, right? And they'll go in because there's free resources. They can go in and get them. If they're doing a study on Shakespeare or whatever, it's there, right? So they'll go in and they'll grab some of our material. But somebody from France came in and was trying to teach English as a second language, and they saw our English language learning, and they're like, "Can we buy the content for that?" And sure, yeah, happy to help. So yeah, we're teaching English classes in French, in France, I should say, yeah.
Right. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Is there any interest in the testing from abroad? I know I'm on a tangent now because
No, it's a great question. It's a great question. We are engaged in discussions for that. Like, for example, that there's a TOEFL test, which is English as a second language, right? There is all sorts of a variety of assessments, from international assessments, that we could go do. And that's the discussion that my board and I are having now currently, is getting into some professional certifications. Like, for example, if you want to be just a real estate agent in the state of Texas, right, you have to take 8 exams before you can sit or take your licensing exam, right? So if we had that content, could we deliver that so somebody could graduate high school with their real estate license, right? Would that help somebody, right? And so we're looking actively at that. And then like electrical skill sets. I know I talked to Grand Canyon just the other day, and they've got an electrical apprentice program I thought was brilliant, right? Is that for 12 weeks, and I think it's $4,000, you can come out as an electrical apprentice. They had 30 people in the first cohort, 28 graduated, 28 people got a job the very next day, starting at $65,000 a year.
Wow.
And it cost them $4,000 to go to college. 12 weeks later, they're out in the workforce. And I think stuff like that, because prior to coming to Shmoop, I was in what's called the remote proctoring space. So we would work with colleges all over the country to watch you take your test so you could take it wherever, and we would validate that you were the actual person doing it. And so, I always told school systems that, the school system that figured out how to deliver professional certifications in an efficient and effective way would have a significant advantage. And be able to their population would be enormous, because you think about all the people that go get their CCIE exam, or my accounting degree, or my accounting, I want to be a laboratory technician, right? These are all things that can be taught at school, and the schools should be taking that curriculum and preparing students for the next level. That's really what success is for schools. It's not. In high school, I got three courses, right? If I finish my high school, it's career, it's college, it's military, right? And so it's not back home and with mom and dad. That's not what it's supposed to work. Even though we talked earlier, I've got a 25 who's moved back home, right? So
there's millions of 20-year-olds that live at home right now. Yep.
So imagine the high school that takes that curriculum and applies it. When I'm as old as dirt, but we had metal shop, we had auto shop, we had those things. But imagine if I had solar installation shop, or if I had accounting shop, or if I had, I want to be a barber shop, right? There are a lot of options that we just aren't applying in our educational system today that I think could be very marketable.
Yeah, for sure. Good points. Thank you. What's been one of the biggest challenges for Shmoop, or since you've been at Shmoop, for you?
You bet. It's understanding the educational landscape to be in the K-12 space. And what I mean by that is every district is different, and yet there's some similarities. How they buy, the process to which they acquire things, you would think would be relatively simplistic, and it's nothing near that, right? And so going through just what I would call industry specific knowledge and trying to understand that, it has been the biggest hurdle for me personally. But after a year in the helm, I think it would pretty much, I've got it under wraps. We'll see.
Awesome. Okay. Very cool. Thank you for that. So let's do a personal question, on a reflection question for you.
Yeah.
What do you wish you knew sooner about building wealth and success in your career?
Oh, yeah. Several things, because I built and sold 4 different companies.
Okay.
And all the way from aviation engineering, right? We were building cockpit display systems for jets, to remote proctoring, and then now in the ed tech space. And so
you're learning all the way.
Yeah, every one of them you're learning. The biggest lesson for me was learn to hit what I call singles, right? Just be where your feet are at, right? Yeah, be where your feet are at that day, and manage what you can manage, and try to hit singles. And if you get up every day and you try to do that, I find that you'll have much greater success than coming in and chasing that one client or the prospect you think can change your life, right? Get in there and hit singles, and you typically will do far better than those people trying to hit home runs.
Okay, that's great advice. Thank you. Did you have another pearl? You said you had a few things.
We don't have enough time for those pearls. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I think a pearl is every time someone makes a mistake and they learn from it, and I've got a lot of those. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, heck yeah. All right. So in wrapping up the interview, I was wondering if you want to talk about any specific initiatives or exciting plans coming up in the next.
Sure. Yeah. No, we've got a couple, right? So the goal for us here in Arizona, when I came here, we just don't have a lot of Arizona clients right now. And I found that to be interesting, right? And so given the fact that schools are here, I can go see them. Now, again, COVID had some stuff to do with it, but at the end of the day, like we're starting a backyard campaign, if you will, looking for institutions and individuals in Arizona that, I mean, if you think about it, imagine LA Unified or New York or Chicago Public Schools wanted to come out and see us, right? So I could bring them out and I could take them over to a success story that's right here in our backyard. And then, take them to one of my favorite restaurants. Like, Tim, do you have a favorite restaurant in town? Is it one or let me ask you this. Where would you go get pizza today?
Oh, I know. You got me all excited. I was they have a Bourbon and Bones down the street from me.
There you go.
That's
a good
what I was
right?
thinking as soon as you said.
Imagine taking somebody and showing them a client that's using your solution and they're getting the success that they wanted to get out of it. Sure. It just enhances the environment, right? And then you go to Bourbon and Bones and you celebrate, you talk to them and you figure it all out, right? That would be amazing. And so we have a campaign called the Backyard Campaign. So again, any listener that you have, we'll give them a discount, whether it be an individual or school. And we want to work with you, try to help our own people in our own backyard. So we have those kind of references. Outside of that, we are focusing in on Texas and Tennessee just because there's an ROI for the platform for those institutions right now. And they've got funding this year that they can go get. So we're kicking those institutions off. And then we're growing in the social emotional learning space. We're adding a live counselor. So a student, if they're really struggling, or a parent, we actually had a parent use the system the other day, can click a button and they can chat with a live counselor at that moment so that they have that kind of option. So there's a variety of those things that we're adding. And then we're obviously the content that we're adding in and around individual certification process, or what we call the certification licensure space. We're going to be adding content for that too as well.
Okay. Excellent. Side note. So most of your stuff is sort of automated, right? Programs available, the courses they can go through.
Yeah.
You mentioned a live person. Is that pretty much only for that aspect of Shmoop? Is the counseling?
No. So we have so the counseling is the live counselor. So they'll on a chat. We've got a call center that we've worked with and we've staffed.
Not that they all have to be live though. Have you seen some of the AI stuff?
Some of the AIs
is more effective because people are more open. They talking about stuff than they would a real person. So maybe a hybrid might be a great situation.
Yeah, a hybrid is a brilliant idea. You asked earlier, what other initiatives? We've partnered with IBM and specifically IBM Watson. And what we're building for us is in the TSI, the Texas Success Initiative exam, there's an essay component. Now, most students won't do it because they have to write the essay. You get extra credit for your assessments or for your scores, but it takes 3 weeks to grade it and get it back to you, right? And so most students won't do the essay. And so when I was talking to educators in Texas, they love the essay component to help their students learn how to write in English, because if you can learn how to write in English, you certainly learn how to speak the English and how to communicate more efficiently and effectively. And so they like teaching that early on. 8th grade is when they'll ask them to do some of these essay questions. The problem, again, is 3 weeks to get it back. And then there's that cycle of learning, right? And so we are working with IBM Watson to where we can ask you an essay question. You would fill it out. Within 5 minutes, you'll get your answers back on likelihood to pass or likelihood to fail number based on their standards. And then here's what you did well. And then here's what you can do to improve. And then, oh, by the way, here's your next drill. Try this one, right? And so you have that circular learning component tightened up so where it's more efficient and effective. And so IBM Watson is a very unique AI tool. But Tim, you nailed the head, or right on the head. Is that the AI continues to progress every day, every day.
Not linearly either.
No. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Geometric progression. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. So, if people would like to connect with you and learn more about Shmoop, what should they do?
You can either call me directly or my email is Caldwell. So it's ACALDWELL at Shmoop, SHMOOP.com.
All right. That sounds good. So, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Tim, no, I just appreciate you taking the time, man. This has been fantastic.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening and watching. Thank you again very much, Andrew Caldwell, for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing your story and insights into success and testing and education.
Sure. You bet, man. Thank you very much.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.